acts like this, and we're going to be in great shape.
Tonight, implications of President Trump's return to office across the West. People turning to social media with warnings for immigrants.
Because of sometimes misinformation or desperation, they unknowingly sign away their rights.
Good evening on this Thursday and welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Christina Rendon. Today marks 1 month since President Trump's return to office. Social media posts getting a lot of shares suggest he's targeting more than undocumented migrants in his illegal immigration crackdown. Fox 11's Gina Silva shows us why some people worry green card holders in California are at risk.
It's really important that we get the word out so other people don't fall into this trap.
It's a viral TikTok video with 2.5 million views. A woman says her niece, a nursing student with a green card, was deported upon returning to LAX from Laos.
And Customs stopped her and took her green card, cut the corner off of it, put her in a room with like 3 other people, and told one of the people in that room that if you have been a green card holder for less than 2 years and you leave the United States, they won't let you back in and they take away your green card.
Yeah, that's unlawful. They can't do that.
Jose Osorio is an immigration attorney. He doesn't know what happened in that case, but he explains that people with green cards can typically travel abroad for up to 180 days without a problem. However, he warns that some travelers have faced pressure upon returning to the U.S. to sign documents like this one, the I-407, which voluntarily gives up their lawful permanent resident status.
They can be interrogated alone without the assistance of counsel. Because of sometimes misinformation or desperation, they unknowingly sign away their rights. And that results in the abandonment of resident status.
Online, there are multiple videos warning travelers not to sign any documents.
They ask you to sign the form I-407. Don't do it. What you can do is you can ask to see an immigration judge.
Osorio explains that customs officials are only authorized to ask 3 specific type of questions.
1, questions pertaining to their identity. 2, to show permanent resident status here. And 3, customs-related questions, which they ask everyone.
For example, they may ask about bringing foreign food into the country or carrying more than $10,000 in currency. Bottom line, Osorio emphasizes that knowing your rights has never been more important.
If you don't understand it, don't sign it.
That was Fox 11's Gina Silva reporting. Drug enforcement agents say some of the people arrested during an illegal immigration crackdown in Utah have ties to gang activity. The DEA has images posted online showing how the migrants were taken into custody in Salt Lake City over the weekend. Investigators say 4 of the 13 people who were arrested have ties to a Venezuelan gang. They have not identified anyone who was taken into custody. All of the detainees have been handed over to ICE for deportation. We're learning more about the illegal immigration detainees being sent to Guantanamo Bay. A new court filing shows the Navy detention facility in Cuba is being used to hold only Venezuelan immigrants who are subject to final deportation orders. The Justice Department submitted the filing, offering the most thorough accounting to date about who is being held at the remote military complex. The department explains in the filing that, quote, Venezuela has historically resisted accepting repatriation of its citizens. President Trump says he's working to make Guantanamo Bay have the ability to hold as many as 30,000 people. The Trump administration is reporting a big drop in illegal border crossings along the country's southern border. The White House says data from Customs and Border Protection shows apprehensions were down 85% the last 10 days of January compared to the year before. The American Friends Service Committee, or AFSC, has teams in San Diego County to help migrant communities. The group says that it's too early to tell if the Trump border crackdown is the reason behind the drop in traffic.
During the first Trump administration and then the Biden administration, the early month after them coming into power, this is the outcome that we saw, a dramatic change in numbers, not seeing as many people, and then things picked up in April.
The Trump administration has ramped up troops along the border. AFSC says it's possible that the drop in crossings could mean migrants are taking more dangerous routes into the country to avoid detection. The Trump administration is launching an investigation into $4 billion of federal funding for California's high-speed rail project. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said in a news conference in Los Angeles that the money could be shifted to other projects. In 2008, voters first approved bonds for the project, and since then, the estimated cost has just ballooned from $33 billion to $106 billion. Duffy said that, in his view, the project is not viable.
The project's not going to happen. There is no timeline in which you're going to have a high-speed rail that goes from LA to San Francisco. That timeline does not exist. And the estimates are incredibly rough on the dollar front.
The CEO of the High-Speed Rail Authority responded by saying every dollar is accounted for. He added that more than 50 major structures have been completed and the project has created nearly 15,000 jobs. It doesn't appear that funding for the high-speed rail project between Southern California and Las Vegas is in jeopardy. Today, the Transportation Department called work underway to complete that project, quote, impressive. The Biden administration approved billions of dollars in federal funding for the Bright Line West project. It's expected to make it possible to travel by train between Los Angeles and Las Vegas in about 2 hours. Service is expected to begin in 2028. A lot of IRS workers in Colorado say they've become part of the newest round of Trump administration layoffs. One of those laid off workers spoke with Fox 31 in Denver this morning, saying she and more than 100 of her colleagues got emails last night. It informed them to bring in their equipment. The Associated Press reports the Trump administration has plans to lay off thousands of IRS workers. While the White House has not offered specifics on numbers, it is explaining why it thinks some layoffs are necessary.
Well, I think our objective is to make sure that the employees that we pay are being productive and effective. And there are many, more than 100,000 people working to collect taxes, and not all of them are fully occupied.
Several Democratic U.S. senators, including Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, have a letter out to the White House. In it, they warned the Trump administration that IRS layoffs could delay tax refunds and jeopardize criminal investigations. And the effects of the Trump administration's 1,000 layoffs across our national parks and forests already being felt in Washington. The Denny Creek Trail at Mount Baker closed off due to lack of staffing. With fewer helpers, there is rising concern about safety in the park and trash pickups. But one hiker says he believes it is still too soon to gauge the lasting impact of the layoffs.
I'm not the sort of person that is keen on just putting people in a job, in a position, just because there's a position there. Is it needed? Time will tell.
In the last decade, Mount Rainier National Park has seen a 31% increase in visitors while experiencing a nearly 29% decrease in permanent staff. A former NFL player has been arrested after protesting plans for a plaque spelling out MAGA at a library in Huntington Beach, California.
Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal.
On Tuesday, former Minnesota Vikings punter Chris Kluwe went before the Huntington Beach City Council to protest a plaque that uses the words magical, alluring, galvanizing, and adventurous to spell out MAGA. After he finished his speech, he refused to leave the floor and had to be carried out by police. The council approved the plaque. Now Kluwe faces a misdemeanor charge of disturbing an assembly. A possibility the Trump administration will impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods has business owners in Washington state worried. Fox 13's Lauren Donovan spoke with people in the state's border communities about how a tariff could impact their future.
This border crossing is extremely busy.
On the day we visited Sumas, you wouldn't know a border war was brewing by the amount of trucks pouring through customs.
This is a hub of commerce and a hub of trade.
Numbers from the Washington Department of Commerce show Canada is undeniably our state's largest trading partner. The 2024 trade value of imports from Canada was $17.8 billion. Exports, $7.8 billion.
It's easy to forget how interconnected and integrated the economy is.
Across the prairie from Sumas, sitting in the shadow of Baker, is Abbotsford. British Columbia's 5th largest city, it's about the same size as Everett.
And growing, still one of the fastest growing communities in Canada.
And as Alex Mitchell will tell you, when you live in a border town like Abbotsford, maintaining a good relationship with your neighbors to the south is not just important, it's a matter of survival. So how do you think she feels about the looming threat of tariffs?
This would be significantly disastrous, not only for the community of Abbotsford, but for communities across Canada. Absolutely every part of the economy could be affected by this.
How does she know this? Well, Alex runs the local Chamber of Commerce. Surveying the city's 800 businesses, she found 300 exporting to the U.S. report they're spooked.
I would say we've seen some significant concern from about 60% of those businesses that we've talked to in our community alone. And their American customers are really worried about what increased costs will mean for them.
When a manufactured product like this rebar crosses through the checkpoint in Sumas, Canada may not in fact be its final destination.
It's not as simple as saying a finished good is coming from Canada, tack on an extra cost to it. You see products going back and forth across the border.
One example of that is potatoes. Seed, for instance, grown in Alberta, is trucked across the continent and eventually planted here in Skagit Valley. Potatoes yielded from that Canadian seed are often shipped back up to BC just in time for the Canadian Thanksgiving holiday.
If you attach a 25% cost onto that product, it's going to be 25% more expensive to sell that to the customer. And that's everything from your berries to your poultry. Everything that comes across just gets more and more expensive.
But are we talking budget busting? One large-scale farmer in Washington I spoke with says even if the seed becomes more expensive, if you're buying a sack of potatoes at the grocery store, you may not feel the sting. Projecting, if passed on to consumers, it'd be less than a dime more than what they're paying already.
And it's important to note everything you've just heard at this point is merely speculation. And on that front, there is some chatter amongst farmers here in the Skagit Valley of potential tariff carve-outs for ag imports and exports. We will not have any answers for certain, though, until March 1st. That's when President Trump is expected to make a final decision on these tariffs. Until then, reporting in the Skagit Valley, Lauren Donovan, Fox 13 News.
Head over to westcoastwrap.com for extensive coverage of actions taken by President Trump during his first month back in office. Our online coverage includes a breakdown of another victory for his administration today with the confirmation of Kash Patel as FBI director. A rare jailhouse interview for the Menendez brothers. Coming up, the convicted murderers share what they're going through as they wait for a hearing that could put them on the path to freedom.
Let's head on outside the city by the bay, the city of San Francisco, where it was unseasonably warm today. But there's a storm lurking off the west coast. We'll tell you which areas it will impact by the weekend with your West Coast Wrap forecast.
And it is not just child's play. We'll take you to this new immersive experience for all ages in the West. Stay with us. Now to Colorado, where a former sheriff's deputy was convicted in the shooting death of 22-year-old Christian Glass. Jurors found Angie Wen guilty of criminally negligent homicide. Prosecutors said the deputy escalated a standoff with Glass, who showed signs of a mental health crisis as he refused orders to get out of his stuck SUV in June of 2022. The deputy could face up to 3 years in prison. Police are investigating a crash in Washington state after a wrong-way driver slammed into a state trooper. It happened early this morning along Interstate 90 in Bellevue. Police say the trooper positioned their car in the path of the wrong-way driver, which is what led to the crash. Both the trooper and the driver were hurt, but are expected to be okay.
Just goes to show, I mean, these, troopers out here and the law enforcement in general, I mean, if this person continued traveling the wrong way, I believe it would have ended much, much worse. So we're happy that it ended the way it did with minor injuries, but it's just, it's a scary situation.
That driver has been arrested under suspicion of driving under the influence. Convicted double murderers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, sharing their lives behind bars in a rare interview from the San Diego prison where they are being held. They spoke out on the podcast Two Angry Men, which is hosted by their attorney, Mark Garagos, and TMZ's Harvey Levin. Garagos has represented the Menendez brothers in their quest to be resentenced for shooting their parents to death in 1989. TMZ said the 40-minute conversation covers a lot of ground, from bullying and trauma to how they've changed and what they've accomplished inside prison.
Basically, they've built a park of sorts, a tree area where they've planted trees so that the inmates, when they go outside, it's not just this stark prison yard, that there's an alternative area where they can go and feel more like they're actually living.
Their resentencing hearing was postponed until next month due to the Southern California wildfires. The Office of District Attorney Nathan Hochman is reviewing the case. Arizona leaders say its latest drug bust, Operation Double Down, has been a success. Investigators say the operation has led them to crime scenes across Phoenix Valley, where they seized 1.7 million fentanyl pills, 370 pounds of meth, more than 50 pounds of cocaine, $210,000 in cash, and 28 firearms. Investigators say they have arrest warrants out for 25 people connected to the raids.
The intelligence gathered provided a wealth of knowledge as to who was transporting the drugs, how they laundered their money, and investigators worked tirelessly to seize millions of potentially fatal doses of fentanyl.
Leaders say the success of the operation relied on federal funding, which was only saved from Trump administration cuts because several attorneys general sued to keep it going. People in the Pacific Northwest need to get ready for a lot more rain. A live look for you here at the conditions this Seattle on this Thursday night, where it's mostly dry, and we'll bring in KTVU meteorologist Roberta Gonzalez, who can break down when that rain is about to push in. Hi, Roberta.
Hi there, Christina. Yes, mostly dry now, but take a look at our West Coast satellite imagery. This area of low pressure is already knocking at the back door of the Pacific Northwest. Some of these clouds have been shearing off and working their way into the San Francisco Bay Area. As we zoom on in towards the Seattle to Portland region, you can see the precipitation. It's anywhere from Vancouver, Canada, all the way into Seattle, just lurking, ready to push on shore. And look at the plume of moisture, how far back it extends. And then we have tightly coiled up a secondary system. Once it starts raining, it's not going to stop in the Seattle area until Wednesday. Here it is, that line of moisture already banking up against the coastline there. And as you see the future cast all the way through Sunday, it's some pretty heavy rainfall that will encompass the northwestern portion of the state of California. By Monday, it looks like nearly 3 inches of rain in the Portland area, where there's already saturated soil. And when you see this green highlighted area, that's a Puget Sound area. And right there is located the Olympic National Park. And it looks like at this particular time, we do have a flood watch in advancement of that heavy precipitation. And this watch will go into effect on Saturday through Wednesday. Meanwhile, across the contiguous 48 states, we have 4 below zero. That's the actual temperature in Bismarck compared to the western states. How about 71 degrees in Phoenix at this hour? 63 degrees in Las Vegas. It's in the mid-40s in Reno, Nevada, mid-50s in San Francisco, and in Seattle today with that deck of cloudiness. The gray skies looking out towards Elliott Bay. 49 degrees when the average high this time of the year is 50. What a beautiful sunset in San Francisco this evening. The high temperature 64. That's above the average high temperature of 61 degrees. Then we head to LAX, where it was 75 degrees, typically right around 69 degrees this time of the year. And Phoenix at sunset. Wow, what a gorgeous day it was there at 79 degrees. 83, that was the official high in Palm Springs. Mid-60s today at the state capital of California in Sacramento, and 77 degrees in Burbank. This is what you can anticipate as we get ready to slide into the weekend. We're talking about the last weekend of February. Rain each and every day to the north and the Pacific Northwest. In the San Francisco Bay Area, boy, does it look good, even though it's a cloud-sun mix. And gorgeous conditions from Los Angeles through Phoenix, warming in Colorado.
What a difference from north to south. All right, Roberta, thank you. The Washington State Department of Ecology is looking to expand its list of banned chemicals for cosmetics. The Toxic Free Cosmetics Act went into effect this January, restricting formaldehyde and 8 other chemicals in cosmetics. Now the department wants to add 28 other formaldehyde-releasing chemicals to the list. Formaldehyde is a chemical that's toxic to people and the environment. It can cause cancer, harm brain function, increase risk of asthma, and lead to a slew of other health effects.
Cosmetics are not just makeup. So this is all personal care products, things that you might not anticipate are cosmetics, like your shampoo, your deodorant, your lotion, etc.
The Department of Ecology says the goal of the laws are to take the guesswork away from customers, as these chemicals are not always labeled as toxic. The department says it also plans to take public comment as it proposes the new list. A Republican-backed proposal is headed to the Senate that would require healthcare facilities in Utah to let patients supply their own blood for procedures or choose their own donor. Supporters of the bill say it gives patients more personal choice in their medical decisions. Facilities saw a rise in personal requests to choose their donor during the COVID-19 pandemic due to concerns from unvaccinated patients about vaccination transmission. The FDA says the justification for such requests are not supported by medical or scientific evidence, and vaccine components don't replicate through blood transfusions or alter a blood recipient's DNA. Experts with the American Red Cross are also against this bill, saying an increase in these preference requests would divert life-saving resources away from those who need it. A new exhibit in Arizona takes you out of your comfort zone. Coming up, see how it works to put you in a new bubble. A swift aerial rescue in Southern California saves a horse that had slipped into a brush-covered ravine. Check this out. It happened earlier this week in San Juan Capistrano. The horse was discovering his new surroundings after moving to the area from Hawaii when he slipped down an embankment. He and his rider were not injured, but that horse was unable to climb back up. So firefighters had to come in. They cleared the slope, but the horse refused to move. Rescuers then had to use a helicopter to lift that horse to safety. That horse, as you can imagine, just exhausted, but did recover quickly. Nice to see that happy ending. And finally tonight, a new immersive experience in Arizona is putting people on a, quote, bubble planet. There are various multi-sensory rooms to travel through in this new attraction setup. It's in Tempe. The focus is fun, but there's education opportunities as well. Bubble Planet offers partnerships with school groups, combining colors, lasers, lights, of course, bubbles as well. That looks like a whole lot of fun. And it's really a magical experience, not just for young kids, but for people who maybe like you are young at heart.
It just brings out the child in you, like in a way that you never thought was, you just don't think is possible anymore. This is our opportunity to really escape into play for about 90 minutes.
The Bubble Planet pop-up will be at the Arizona Mills Mall through the spring. Again, that's in Tempe. I would love to try something like that out, bring a little fun to my day. All right, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on West Coast Wrap. You can stay up to date on all of the stories we're covering online. Just go to westcoastwrap.com and stream all of our shows on your smart TV by downloading our Fox Local app. We leave you with this live look of San Francisco. Have a good night, West Coast.